Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios. It's Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Resort, Atlantic City. Book your game day experience today at Caesars.com. I'm Mike Gill. On the other end of the line, Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com. He joins me now. It's the Eagles and the Jets this weekend in MetLife Stadium for the second week in a row for Philadelphia. We're going to look at the matchups to watch in that game, some of the breakdown here by Andrew, and he joins me now here on the Sports Bash on a Thursday. Andrew DiCecco, what's up, my man?
Mike, my man, what's going on?
All is good. I love this Thursday. We get to kind of get our hands dirty and break this matchup down. I want to first get your thoughts on the Thursday night game tonight, Dallas and the Saints, because this game has turned into an interesting one here locally because Dallas, obviously a loss, brings them back to the pack again. And the Saints, if they win, believe it or not, at the end of the night, they would be the 7th seed.
Yeah, this game is going to be really interesting, and it's really hard. It was almost like a coin flip, right? I mean, both teams are they really desperately need this win, and I have to lean towards the Saints this week, just thinking that Taysom Hill starting the game at quarterback is going to inject some sort of energy and life into that offense, and obviously I think it's going to present some matchup problems that Dallas may not be equipped to handle right now. Obviously, they're dealing with a lot. So I like New Orleans in this game, but I think it's going to be very closely contested throughout the contest.
Wow. The Saints are still shorthanded. No Kamara. It looks like both tackles are still out. They've been a mess the last 4 weeks. They got lambasted on Thursday night. And then here's Dallas. Cooper's expected to return tonight. We think their offensive line might be back in shape a little bit here. But you think adding Hill, is that a little bit of a problem for Dallas's defense?
Yeah, he presents a little bit of a conundrum, and I also really like their defense. I like, from a defensive standpoint, I like their matchup versus what Dallas likes to do. I don't anticipate a big game from Tony Pollard or really Ezekiel Elliott, and I think that they're going to sort of pin their ears back and get after Dak Prescott. So it's sort of how I see it unfolding. I think Taysom Hill is going to make a couple splash plays with his legs, and I think it could surprise some people.
I want to get your opinion on this because if I say it, I'm a hater, yada, yada. Is Dallas a team that is disappointing, overrated? I mean, is it another case of us just overrating this Cowboys team? Are they better than we've given them credit for? Have the injuries been a problem? What is the reason for this Cowboys team who is, not where I guess a lot of people thought they would be?
I actually do think they are a good football team, Mike, and I think that it all starts with Dak Prescott. I think he has the potential to really elevate that offense throughout the final stretch of the season and really make, providing that momentum that's going to carry into the playoffs potentially. And I do like what they have from a skill set standpoint, and their offensive line's obviously strong. Their defense is middle of the road, I would say, but they are they're decent enough to be able to contend, maybe sneak a win in the playoffs. They still need a lot of work in that area. But I do think overall, Mike, I think they are equipped to they're the most well-rounded team, in my opinion, in the division.
I agree with that. I mean, and here's the problem I have. The last 4 years, I think they've been the best roster in the division and yet haven't won one of those divisions in the last 4 years. And it's like, I keep ending up with egg on my face because I'll say the Cowboys are the best roster, and I think their problem has been Jason Garrett in the previous incarnation of the Cowboys' good rosters. I think he was just an awful head coach, and now this team here, terrible. I like that. Now this head coach and this roster, you look at why they're underperforming.
Yeah, I think you have to look directly at Mike McCarthy. Mike McCarthy is not a coach that's really proven to elevate. I mean, obviously, when he was with the Green Bay Packers, he had Aaron Rodgers there. Aaron Rodgers is an all-world quarterback. He's going to make any team a viable playoff option. But when you look at what Mike McCarthy brings, he's not really overly innovative. And if you look at the way he's constructed his rosters over the past, they're not really built for sustained success, I would say. And I think right now he is solely holding Dallas back right now from really putting their stamp on the NFC. So Dallas has also had some injuries and obviously COVID situations have factored in, but that they're always going to be tied to. It seems like they're always tied to their head coach, the ineptitude of their head coach, Jason Garrett, and now Mike McCarthy.
I like what Steve Young said the other night. He's like, hey, this is who they've been for 25 years. It's just a disappointing team. They constantly get overvalued, and I think we all fall into that trap. And some of it, I think, Andrew, is because of the mediocrity behind them. It's, Washington, right. New York, Philadelphia, they've all got their own problems. Dallas is in far better roster shape than them, and realistically, this division should not be at an arm's length right now. But do you think that Washington, who right now is the 7th seed, in your mind, are they a player?
They certainly are, actually, and they're starting to peak at the right time. They have a very favorable schedule, much like the Eagles do, but they also have a defensive line that really lends itself well to, being a viable playoff contender in this final stretch of the season. They're running the ball well with Antonio Gibson. You have McKissick, who's a good receiving option, so you have a good 1-2 punch there. The defensive line is always going to be strong and get after quarterbacks. And, I think they're starting – it was a very slow – it was sort of puzzling how they started the season, but I think things are starting to come together for them at the right time. So, yeah, they are they're making a strong playoff push here, and they're a team to watch in the coming weeks.
The thing about Washington at the beginning of the year, and I agree with you, I felt they were going to have a top 5 defense in the league, if not the best defense in the league. Their defense was horrible. Now, here's their defense turning around after they've lost their best player on the defensive side of the ball. So it's interesting to watch this team kind of come together, losing Chase Young, off to the bad start, and then offensively – it seems like they've almost taken a page from what the Eagles have done and just said, hey, we're going to just simplify things.
Yeah, that's what they're doing. They're not trying to overload Taylor Heineke, who I think he's done a fine job as a dual-threat quarterback, 16 touchdowns, 10 interceptions this season. But he's going – they're just having him, can manage the game. Don't lose it for them, right? You have 2 good running backs that provide different elements to the offense. You have the do-it-all running back, the between-the-tackles guy, the explosiveness and between the tackle running of Antonio Gibson. Then you also have the receiving prowess, and he's he's vastly undersized, but he's quick, he's shifty, and J.D. McKissick. So I like what they have there. They're getting Logan Thomas back. You have Terry McLaurin there, so it's a very balanced offensive attack. You just don't want to ask Taylor Heineke to do what they asked Jalen Hurts to do in the first half of the season, which is drop back, 35, 40 times and throw the football. That's not the recipe for success for that team.
Andrew DiCecco, Football 4. All right, Eagles-Jets this weekend. We talked a little bit about the division around Philadelphia, disappointing loss last week, and it looked like a team – we talked about this last week, Andrew. What are you going to look like when you go into a game and you're now expected to win, and the result was not good? It did not look like a team that looked like they were ready to be a favorite in a game on the road there. So, back to the drawing board this week. What are some of the little things that they need to clean up from that game last week?
Yeah, and this sort of piggybacking off of our conversation on Tuesday, and something that I actually wrote for InsideTheBirds.com is that and Jalen Hurts mentioned this yesterday, just the attention to detail and how that needs to be a focal point. And sometimes when you're playing a team that you feel like you're vastly superior than, and this last week was the Giants, in this case is the Jets, you tend to think you can get by on sheer skill or ability or upside or whatever it is, but you lose the attention to detail and the execution. Those things tend to fall by the wayside. And if you're the Eagles, you're not good enough to overlook any opponent. You have to approach every game as if it's a must-win situation. And that starts with preparation, that starts with execution, attention to detail, and you can't afford to have penalties wipe out a run like they did with Jalen Hurts, a 24-yard run like they had for Jalen Hurts, a touchdown in Boston from Boston Scott. You have to always the margin for error is so small, and every game is a must-win situation for the Eagles right now. So they have to they can't go into it trying to undersell the Jets. I mean, look, we've seen crazy things happen. The Jaguars beat the Bills this season, and you can point to countless other examples this season. You can't take a team lightly. You have to go in there and bring your A game.
I guess one of the questions that I want to get your opinion and breakdown on is this. Obviously, if you look at the Jets' run defense in any game this year, they're awful. Philly likes to run the ball. So is this a clear mismatch that the Eagles can exploit in this game and just say, look, we're going to go back to the basics and we are just going to go back to running the ball 35, 40 times in this particular game?
Yeah, no, and I think that they have to do that because the Jets they're undersized on the defensive line and at the linebacker position. I mean, I like a player like a John Franklin Myers or a Florenzo Fadukasi, but they're rotational players that are being asked to take on the lion's share of snaps. That's not really what they're best suited for. So you have to run at continue to run between the tackles and the linebackers. I mean, C.J. Mosley was a player that when I covered the Jets, I was there for his debut. And he was, highly decorated coming over from the Ravens, and he looked like he was on pace to be an all-pro player, suffered a season-ending injury in that game, and really has not shown to be the player that many envisioned him when he signed that lucrative free agent deal. So he's really struggled in coverage and against the run.
Yeah.
So I think there's going to be opportunities to go right up the middle on this team early and often, and if that means that you have to lean on Boston Scott, who doesn't do a whole lot of dance at the line of scrimmage, well, then he has to be that Jordan Howard. Well, then I think you have to go that route because they'll be able to pick up yardage, and they just cannot abandon the run if they don't get any traction early.
Yeah, by the way, speaking of the running game, you've got some injury situations with the Eagles. Illness is the problem right now with Boston Scott, a knee for Jordan Howard, so we don't know what their situations are going to be, and I believe Miles Sanders has a bit of an ankle issue here. So you got all three guys appearing. I didn't see today's injury list if it came out yet. I did not get the email yet from the Eagles, but which of the three backs in your mind gives them the most consistency in the run game?
Well, the most talented running back is Miles Sanders, but I think right now when you're looking at what the Eagles are really valuing, I think right now when you're trying to generate some sort of consistency and some sort of a rhythmic flow on offense, Boston Scott right now provides that. Before that, it was Jordan Howard. Obviously, he's not there, so the closest thing that you have in that sort of running style is going to be Boston Scott. Yes, he had that fumble last week, but he's the preferred option around the goal line. He has a no-nonsense style of running and, good contact balance, a lot to like there. Can also catch the football as well. But, you would like to see them lean on Miles Sanders a little bit more. I mean, if it's fumbling that they're worried about, then Boston Scott fumbled last week. And Miles Sanders is a home run hitting running back. And I think that, he averaged 7 yards a carry last week. So I think you need to go back to finding a way to implement Miles Sanders into the game plan while also using a healthy dosage of Boston Scott as well, because there's going to be wide running lanes in this game, especially with the way the Eagles' offensive line is playing as of late.
By the way, the injury report is Howard DNP, Scott DNP, and Sanders limited. So you have two guys who did not practice today. All right, the run game, we know Philly can run. Jets do a poor job stopping the run here. But the whole Howard ankle situation, okay, it looks like he's going to play. But if he's not 100%, has he shown enough as a passer to say, you could take that element away from me, and I'm still going to be, out there playing and contributing? If you are the Eagles and he's not 100%, do you think about, hey, maybe he's not our best option?
Who's that, Jordan Howard?
No, Jalen Hurts.
Oh, Jalen Hurts. Sorry, it sounded like you said Howard. I think that Jalen Hurts gives you the best opportunity to win the football game, and they have a lot riding on this season as far as from an evaluation standpoint. Every game here is crucial when you're assessing the quarterback position and what you're going to do moving forward. And I think that knowing the competitor that Jalen Hurts is, he's going to want to play in this game. Now, if he's not able to run the football, that's a big dimension of his skill set and something that the Eagles are really going to lean heavily on. So you have to sort of weigh your options, and if he's going to be able to be effective and move the football. But I think he clearly gives the Eagles the best chance to win the football game, and it's going to be hard to keep him out of the lineup knowing his competitive nature.
Yeah, you're darn right he's going to want to play. I guess the question is, if his ankle's not 100%, is he taking a huge element? I don't think he ran the ball one time in the second half of that game against the Giants. You wonder how much that ankle was a problem that he did not take off once in the second half of that game against the Giants, and he did not play his best game on Sunday. So that's something to keep an eye on. Let's flip to defense. If the Jets do something well offensively, what is it?
Well, I think that they're good in the intermediary game with Jamison Crowder, who remains a criminally underrated wide receiver, not someone that's going to be overly explosive, kind of like a Greg Ward, but he's a little bit more shifty than Greg Ward. He's a good safety valve. Corey Davis was, sort of emerged as a go-to option earlier in the season. I think I like what he sort of adds to their offense, but the quarterback position has not been very consistent. The quarterback play, I should say. So, I mean, you'd be hard pressed to find a certain area of their offense that's really taken that next step or sort of elevated that unit. I mean, the running back situation right now, you're looking at Ty Johnson and Tevin Coleman, two plotters. Though Ty Johnson, I was there for his pro day at Maryland. He ran anywhere from, depending on who you ask, a 4.26 to a 4.31. So he's really fast, and he can scoot a little bit if you give him some space. Tevin Coleman doesn't really provide much in terms of big play upside. These guys are mostly plotters, so they're not really home run hitting running backs. So, I mean, you're really just going to be keying in on Corey Davis and Jamison Crowder, and Elijah Moore is a player who has really emerged really in that Colts game we all saw on Thursday Night Football. He's someone that I think they're going to key in on, and I think they're going to be able to limit him in that regard. But there's not a lot there on that offense right now.
If you're John Gannon, what is your strategy this week? We've seen an Eagles defense that has played much better in the last couple of weeks. I mean, to give up 13 points on the road and lose that game's a travesty. So what is John Gannon trying to do this week again against this Jets team?
I think you have to attack and be a little bit more aggressive this week against that offensive line. Get the quarterback rattled, force him to make some poor decisions, which he's been proven to do. And I think if you can get to Zack Wilson early, you will force some turnovers. I think Darius Slay is going to be a big factor in this game. And you would like to see the Eagles defensive line take advantage this week of another porous offensive line. I thought they would have done that last week against the Giants, just that one sack. But you want to see some more quarterback hits and more pressure this week from John Gannon against another, kind of banged up offensive line.
Zack Wilson, obviously the number 2 pick in the draft. Let's get what your draft thoughts were on him when he was drafted and what he has so far done, which isn't much in the NFL.
Yeah, I was one of the – I think I enjoyed watching him at BYU. He was must-see TV. But going into the draft, I wasn't really high on his pro prospects. I thought that he had a lot of areas of opportunity to really improve on, and he really hasn't. I thought that as a passer, I thought he was didn't see the field particularly well. I thought he, much like Jalen Hurts, I thought that he took off and ran a little bit prematurely outside the pocket. I think he forces the ball in the places where he shouldn't. His decision making isn't where it needs to be, and he's just as you see, he's very turnover prone. I don't think he sees the field particularly well, and like I said, I think he's one of those players that, to me at least, struck me as someone who was going to be a dynamic college player, but I didn't necessarily see his traits translating over to the pro level as much as some other people did.
Yeah, and so far that has kind of played out for him in the NFL. He has really struggled. He got hurt in last week's game, came back. We would imagine that he will be the guy that plays this week for the Jets as they host the Eagles back at the MetLife Stadium for the Eagles and Jets, and you can hear that game right here on 97.3 ESPN. And obviously the Eagles are another road favorite in this game, and I would imagine after losing to the Giants last week, they go in much more focused. But do you see a path to victory for the Jets in this game, or is this a game where Philadelphia should be able to take care of business?
It's hard to see a path to victory with what the Jets do. They're very limited offensively. Maybe if you get Zack Wilson out on the move and he makes creates some big yardage, big gains with his legs and some of those momentum shifting type plays, or maybe Elijah Moore breaks free on a short game on a short reception and takes one, 50 yards or whatever. But I don't know. The Eagles are clearly the better team, and I think that last week served as a harsh reminder of making sure that you bring your A game every week, because you don't want to. And that was a very humbling loss, and I don't think that's going to happen for a second consecutive week.
All right, keep it simple, man. Keep it simple. This Jets defense against the run, awful, and their offense doesn't put up a whole lot of points, although they did win last week. So the Jets coming in with a little momentum. Plus, you got the Howie Roseman versus Joe Douglas matchup here. Joe Douglas, of course, the GM for the Jets. He wants to show his old boss, hey, I'm going in the right direction. That's the game right here on 97.3 ESPN. That's Andrew DiCecco, InsideTheBirds.com. And, of course, he'll be back on Tuesday to take a look back at Eagles and Jets. Andrew, enjoy the game, man.
Yeah, man. You too, Mike.
All right, that's Andrew DiCecco. And, of course, he joins us Tuesdays and Thursdays for Football at 4. Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, and it is brought to you locally by Caesars Entertainment Group of Atlantic City. Come experience the ultimate sports destinations all season long. Wild Wild West, Tropicana, Harrah's Atlantic City. Reserve your game day experience today at Caesars.com.